And we welcome you to another edition of On the Hash with Hatfield, our weekly football podcast with all of you as we get you set for all the high school football action that is coming on this expected to be wet and windy weekend as September is winding down. It's hard to believe we were just starting this season in August. It felt like maybe an hour ago, and here it is, the football season getting closer and closer to the midway point of the regular season. We say this all the time with the NFL, college football, high school football. It just breezes by as you go straight from summer, it feels like, to winter. No stop in between for the fall, but I'm hoping and keeping the fingers crossed we get some lovely fall weather. We had some pretty decent weather last weekend for a couple of the games I was out at with Atlantic Shores taking on North Cross right there at the Plex, which you see behind me. And you can always watch all the games that are archived as well as streamed live on our Virginia Beach Sportsplex YouTube channel from the Plex. We even have had some playoff games over the years there. Hope to get some more in the future. But was also at Bayside Lansdowne last Thursday, was at a mega showdown a couple weeks ago with Maury and Highland Springs. I'll get to Maury in a second. Green Run's a big topic as well. And we'll have a conversation coming up with the head football coach of the Kings Fork Bulldogs. And that is, of course, Anthony Joffrion, who is the coach to preview the matchup with Nansemond River. And by the way, we'll start there with the ticker. You're going to see coming across the ticker a lot of the games that are scheduled for this evening, games that are scheduled for Friday night, games that are scheduled for Saturday. It's all weather permitting, subject to change. Nothing is etched in stone these days, especially with the weather. So keep that in mind. Take it with a grain of salt. You might see a game listed, in fact, with our interview, which we'll give you a disclaimer. We actually recorded the interview on Wednesday with Coach Joffrion and then found out that the game got moved up a day. So you might hear us talk about Friday. The game is Thursday. Kings Fork, Nansemond River tonight, coming up in Suffolk, 7 o'clock. I'll be out there for that one. Should be a great showdown with two undefeated teams. We'll give you a little thought on that game after his conversation coming up, though. But the weather is going to play some havoc with the schedule. A little surprised the Beach District did not jump. And maybe some of it had to do with officials and JV games being scheduled. I'm not sure. I don't want to speak out of turn here, but 5 games on the docket for them with Bayside at First Colonial, Cox hosting Salem, Green Run hosting Princess Anne. There's supposed to be some festivities for there. I think it's their homecoming of sorts or something like that, parade and all that scheduled. You've also got Kellum hosting Ocean Lakes and Tallwood at Kempsville, which is a big rivalry game between those two schools. My hunch is, if I had to guess, and I'm not a weatherman, I don't predict the weather. I predict the football games, which we'll also get to. I got a 4-game lead on my 757 Saturday Sports Talk competitor. That is the coach Ed Young. He of Nansemond River basketball fame, my old radio partner, who's now my podcast partner, which you can watch that podcast, listen to it live and on demand with our Sportsplex YouTube channel. Thanks to the folks at Hometown Sports Productions every Saturday, 10 to about 12 noon. We've gone past 11:30 a.m. on a lot of these Saturdays, but as Ed and I give you the picks, and we also go through everything in the world of sports, but we got 4 disagreements on deck. But if I had to, going back here as I'm jumping all over the place, if I had to forecast, my thinking is if they don't get the games in because of weather for Friday night, which is looking very iffy at best right now, I could see the Beach moving those games, shifting them to Monday, because I'm not sure the weather's going to be a whole lot better for Saturday. You're not going to play on a Sunday. And that will crunch some of these teams that have to play Monday, Friday. But I could see those 5 games I just alluded to with Kempsville, Tallwood, Kellum, and Ocean Lakes, as well as PA Green Run, Bayside FC, and Cox Salem, potentially being moved to Monday. I don't have any inside knowledge or insight to it, but a lot of your games got moved up to tonight here for Thursday across the Eastern District, the Southeastern, the Peninsula, the Bay Rivers. The Beach is the one that's kind of been holding out. There was a couple games of the Peninsula because they have just 2 stadiums with Darling and Todd at their disposal, if you will. The Bay Rivers has sort of a similar feel with Bailey Field and Warner Stadium in Williamsburg. So that does have a little bit of your, challenges, if you will, that goes with making that all happen and take place. Let's start with Maury, though. I want to go to them. They have looked like as dominant a team as anybody could have envisioned them being. There were people all over social media, websites, ours at virginiapreps.com, posting on the message boards. I've talked about them on my Hats Hits. I've got the purple hat for that. We'll have Hats Hits after football games on Friday nights, of course, on X, once known as Twitter, as I give you 5 takeaways, big takeaways across the state. They thought that Maury could be 1-2 or 0-3 with the schedule that they, composed with the likes of Wise from Maryland, a state power, Highland Springs, who's won, 4, 5, 6 state titles in the last decade plus under Lauren Johnson, come into Norfolk, beat them in last year's state championship game, and then Dinwiddie on the road where they had to rally back in that game, down a couple of instances in the first half, down at the break. But Maury's defense has been on point in the second half of games, and Autori Newkirk, the quarterback, has jumped in 2 feet, full-blown, ready to go as a all-state level quarterback right off the bat, which is mighty impressive. He was not a varsity starter, even the top backup a year ago, and Doreen McCain keeps producing these great quarterbacks year after year after year. Kevin Van Mills is at the top of the charts, Eric Gibson, Saquon Miles. You see what they've done year after year after year. Last year with Mario Miller, and here they go with Autori Newkirk throwing to a host of wide receivers and great weapons with the likes of Devontae Floyd, the Duke commit, South Carolina pledge, Fred J.R. Johnson, Josh Powell, LeBron Bond. List goes on and on of the receivers that they can throw at you. So 3-0, they've got Lake Taylor on deck. Titans are not having their typical type of year here at 1-2. They've dropped a couple since the win over Camden of New Jersey. They got a couple of injury situations. Their quarterback is supposed to be out for a couple more games here. This could be a little ugly for the Titans here, and Maury wants to get to 4-0, and they could certainly dominate the competition in the Eastern District, much like Green Run has done in the Beach District. Let's go to Green Run. They have arguably the best player in the area, and he's certainly in the conversation for best player in the state, regardless of position. And we're talking about Keelan Brody Adams. He's rated number 1 player in Hampton Roads. He's committed to Virginia Tech, and before he heads off to Blacksburg, wants to get a ring. They've come up short the last couple of years against Maury in the state semifinals. They've breezed through the Beach District. They've won upwards now of 26, 27 straight Beach games. I've lost track, all by running clock margins, just completely dominant. And as you look at Green Run here, their stud receiver we thought broke some records. A lot of people did. The media outlets thought that he broke some records in terms of the touchdown career receptions record. We'll have to do some double check, and actually got tipped off on social media by a Northern Virginia football fan. South County has 2 young men that broke a record for receiving, but it never was reported by the VHSL, and I understand it's going to be in the VHSL record book, they believe and hope soon, and those being the likes of Brock Spalding and Dylan Spalding, both brothers. Now, Brock has got 58 touchdown catches. Dylan has 52 touchdown grabs. Right now, Adams has got 49. I think he's going to get there. 9 TDs in 6 games, very easy to get. And plus, you got to add on the playoff games. I think Brody's going to set the record. It's just a matter of when, not if, provided he stays healthy and nothing happens to discourage that from taking place. And then you're also looking at receiving yardage. Now, he's already set marks in the Beach District. I mean, there's been a lot of great receivers in the Beach District. You think of Jeremy Gilchrist. You think of Percy Harvin, who started at Lansdowne. You think of his teammate and Damon McDaniel at Lansdowne. Bayside had some great receivers with Demetrius Nicholson, Anthony Cooper and company. Ocean Lakes with Justin Hunter. Andre Dessenberg had a great run in the state playoffs for them. So there's been just a litany of talented receivers. Oh, by the way, at Green Run, they had Plaxico Burris, who played in the National Football League after a career at Michigan State in college. Played with the Pittsburgh Steelers before he got to the Giants and helped the Giants win the Super Bowl, knocking off an undefeated New England team with that game-winning touchdown catch. People talk about David Tyree's helmet catch. They always forget about Plaxico had the game-winning touchdown catch from Eli Manning in the Super Bowl. So he's shattering records. Receiving yardage, he's going to need, doing the math here, he's going to need to average about 109 yards per game if he gets the number of games I'm thinking he'll get, which is a minimum of 14. That's win another region championship, get to the state semifinals, which I think they will do. Without the playoffs included, it needs about 181.8 yards per game the rest of the regular season, which is attainable, a little harder to do, and Green Run does split it up very well. Coach Brandon Williams and his staff with Hugh Payton as the offensive coordinator, they like to distribute the football to a lot of different receivers. They got Tayshawn Young-Steve, Jay Anderson, Quali Price, Emmanuel Turner's a new face to the offense this year as well, to go catching the football from Kassan Farrar. Much like I mentioned with Maury's quarterbacks, Green Run has just produced stud after stud after stud the last few years. Xavier Davis was great, went to Emory and Henry. Kevin White was awesome last year. He's now at North Carolina A&T. That was a steal for them, big time steal, because in my opinion, he could have played FBS football, and I don't know why he's not. And now you've got Kassan Farrar coming in, the new face from Minchville, who has been lighting it up already thus far. So Adams, I think, is going to get there. Looking at 42-33 for Brock Spalding in terms of receiving yardage, 41-87 for Dylan Spalding. Jeremy Gilchrist finished up with 33-34. Adams is, I've got him at right now like 31-42, so he's going to pass him very soon. He's already passed Percy Harvin with 29-35. But again, different circumstances. The COVID year condensed his freshman campaign. So if he had a full freshman year, he might have already broken a couple of these records, whether it be receptions, yardage, touchdowns. He's going to get there. So I know the Green Run folks are anxious, waiting for him to do it. It's going to happen. Just be patient. It's going to take place. And I think they'll be celebrating on their way to 7-0, 8-0, 9-0, another perfect regular season in the beach, barring anything unforeseen here. And certainly another exciting playoff run for them and possibly a third chapter in that little saga rivalry that's been brewing in Class 5 with them and the Maury Commodores, who have their sights on getting to UVA in the state finals come December. All right, and topic number 3, as we kind of do our version of Christopher Mad Dog Russo's MLB Network High Heat Brushback. Number 3 here, as I've touched on, or number 4, I should say, I've touched on the weather. We've touched on Maury. We've touched on Brody Adams. Number 4, we're going to hit on, which is our question of the week, which you will see flashing on our screen here in a second. You know, talking about great offenses, you think of Maury, you think of Green Run, you probably can have the argument between who's the best offense in the 7-5-7 between those two. In years past, it'd be Oscar Smith. Tiger's not there yet. They're 2-2 this season. They've had a couple of trip-ups, losing to Phoebus, losing to Nansemond River last year, but they've been in that conversation in years past. You've had other programs going back to the 90s, like the Hampton Crabbers, but I think it's pretty much a conversation with Maury and Green Run. But enough about the offense. What about defense? Because defense wins championships, ladies and gents. And there are 2 awesome defenses in the PD, that's the Peninsula District. And I don't know if they're going to rival the 1990s Hampton Crabbers defenses when they won a string of state titles in a row in the Ronald Curry, Bobby Blizzard era, or the Phoebuses of the early to mid-2000s. They had Xavier Adebe, and then they had the group with Baby D, Dominic Davenport, and all 11 guys on defense went to play college football somewhere. And then you had other defenses that were pretty good in the last few years. I think Phoebus and Woodsides. But right now, in the last 3-4 games here, Warwick's given up just 7 points, which were all on special teams to Grassfield. Shut out Bethel, shut out Kickinton, shut out Menchville. Then you got Phoebus, which gave up 2 points to Oscar Smith, which was an intentional safety, by the way. Shut out Woodside, shut out Heritage, and they've been shutting out a lot of people, getting plenty of donuts the last few years. So it begs the question, which it's going to be asked by, I think, everybody everywhere, as it'll flash up on our screen now. Question of the week: which Peninsula District title contender will see its defense surrender a touchdown first, Phoebus or Warwick? And they play each other October 27th at John B. Todd Stadium in Newport News. Which defense will give up a touchdown first? Will they get to that game, both of them, not having allowed a single touchdown? I don't think they'll get that far. I think Phoebus has the better defense of the two. That is no knock to Warwick, who's got a lot of really good players on defense, led by Messiah Delome, who's a class of 2025 recruit, who's getting courted by all kinds of schools. You name them: Michigan, Maryland, Virginia Tech. The whole list goes on and on. But I think Phoebus has the pedigree. They've done it longer, maybe better, you could say. Anthony Reddick's a Maryland commit for their defense. You've got Tayshawn Stevenson, who's committed to Old Dominion. They're the 2 edge rushers, and then pretty much 6-7 other defensive starters back from a record-setting defense that they had last year as they won back-to-back state titles. Warwick hasn't won the state titles. They won a region title, their first in a long time, a season ago. But I will tell you this, looking at the schedules, I think Warwick might go a little bit longer without allowing a touchdown on defense. That's because their upcoming games: Gloucester, Heritage, Denby, Woodside, Hampton. And they've already shut out Bethel, who's starting to show a little bit of a resurgence here the last 2 games. 41 on the board against Menchville, 31 on the board against Woodside. More than just Victor Romaine as a playmaker for them, having a couple other guys step up lately. But I look at Phoebus's upcoming games. They got Bethel scheduled for 12 noon, high noon this Saturday, weather permitting. The Hampton Crabbers the following Saturday at Darling. Kickinton, Gloucester, Menchville, Warwick. If they got through the Bethel-Hampton games without giving up 1 touchdown, which I could see maybe the Crabbers, who are showing some offensive life a little bit here with Kayaz Watford, Calvin Chester, Jamari Lumpkins, as sort of their trio on offense. And they did put up a good 38 on the board against Kickinton after scoring 54 on Gloucester. The schedule might allow the Crabbers to eke out 6 or 7 on the board in terms of points against Phoebus. I think the Phantoms will cruise. But I might say Warwick goes a little longer without giving up a defensive touchdown this season. So there you have it. That's what it's looking like right now as far as the touchdowns go. Weigh in on it. Send us a comment. Like, share, and subscribe always on our YouTube channel. But we want to hear from all of you out there. What do you think? Which defense will go longer without giving up a touchdown, as those two are set to square off into the regular season for Warwick. It's the second to last game for Phoebus, as I think both will have goose eggs in the loss column, and the Phantoms still ranked number 1 in the state by us at virginiapreps.com in Class 4. The Raiders have climbed their way all the way up to number 3 in Class 5 in the state, behind the likes of Maury and Green Run, and just ahead of Kings Fork. And speaking of Kings Fork, when we return after a commercial break and we hear from a couple of our sponsors, we will be chatting with the head football coach of the Bulldogs of KFHS. That is none other than Anthony Joffrion. And before we do all of that here on The Hash with Hatfield, let's take a time out and hear from some of those sponsors. And you always got to get refreshed with Pepsi. That's what I like.
Man, I wish I was out there.
Let's unretire.
Why not?
Randy Moss.
Dan Marino? You alright?
Hey, Grandpa!
Grandpa?
I still got it.
22. 22.
Can we again? Number 13.
Let's see.
Hey. I need that senior discount.
That's the game. Mr. Marino, you mind if I take a selfie? Thank you.
I'm good right here, bro.
Unretirement? Who'd be dumb enough to do that?
At CHKD, sports medicine is more than just treating injuries. It's a whole team approach to caring for young athletes. With experienced physicians, surgeons, trainers, and rehab specialists here when kids and teens need them most. Our experts help young athletes prevent injuries too, with advanced training and conditioning programs that keep them in the game safely. CHKD Sports Medicine, where kids are more than patients and we're more than a hospital.
Every year, thousands of athletes disappear in clutch moments due to falling hydration levels.
I used to go missing all the time. I let everyone down. I even let Shannon Sharp down.
Yeah, you let me down.
They've been told how you feel yourself doesn't matter, that electrolytes are all the same. And just like that, they're gone. Get yourself back in the game. Get yourself a Gatorade. Could be the difference between dominating and disappearing. Gatorade, rehydrate, replenish, refuel.
And welcome to On the Hash with Hatfield, our weekly football podcast. And we're pleased to be joined by a special guest here on the program. He is the head football coach, I believe, in his 4th season at the helm. He'll correct me, of the Kings Fork Bulldogs in Suffolk. He started 3-0 or better every year, and that includes here in 2023, a couple seasons removed from a regional championship and a state semifinal appearance. And I'll tell you about his background, which is from Virginia Beach. He was a player at Ocean Lakes High School on the Shawan. We say hello to Coach Anthony Joffrion. Big game coming up on Friday night, Coach. It's a Suffolk rivalry showdown with you and the Bulldogs, you and the Warriors, I should say, of Nansemond River. Tell me about this matchup, and congrats on the great start to the season so far.
Yeah, it's been a great season, and really look forward to this game. More importantly, because just the city of Suffolk. I grew up in Virginia Beach, played at Ocean Lakes. I didn't really know what Suffolk was, growing up. I was known for farms and stuff like that. So when Scotty Littles hired me out here in 2016, I didn't really know what to expect in Suffolk. But then before you know it, it became a home. Me and my wife, we built a house here in Suffolk. I feel like I'm a Suffolk native now. But in 2016, football, to me, in the area, Suffolk really wasn't known for football. But I definitely want to say, now it's 2023. It's great to just see, how high Suffolk football has come. You got 2 really good teams going at it, 3-0. I want to make the argument it's probably the biggest game, in Suffolk football history. And if I know you probably know the answer to that, I definitely don't, but I'm willing to make that argument that this is one of the, biggest games in, Suffolk football history.
Well, it's funny you say that because I was on with my cohort on Saturdays on 757 Saturday Sports Talk, our podcast at the Plex with Coach Ed Young, who coaches basketball at Nansemond River. And I said, this might evoke memories of those great rivalry games of years back in the early to mid 2000s, I guess you could say, when it was Kings Fork and Nansemond River going mano y mano. By the way, if you need bulletin board material, he did call the puppy dog. So they're already starting a rivalry, trying to start the junk talk. And I know Alonzo Riggs doesn't want to hear that. He's like, why are you doing this, Ed, putting this bulletin board material? But I know there's a little spice added to it because last year you all fell in overtime to them. It certainly sparked them in a lot of ways, but you want to return the favor knowing what happened, I imagine, especially your seniors and juniors, the ones that felt the pain from that defeat.
Yeah, our kids, were a little, disappointed after that loss last year. But, what I always tell our players, when we win, it's because of the players, and when we lose, it's because of me, the head coach. So, at the end of that game last year, I could have kicked the extra point and tied it up, went to double overtime. But I said, let's go for the win. And, we came up about a yard short, and, that's how we lost. So, at the end of the day, it's never on the players. It's always on the head coach. And I stand by my decision a year later. I'd probably do the same thing again. But it was an intense game last year. And I think this year, it has the makings to be a really good football game.
People know about how good Kings Fork is. I think the seminal moment of the program, you were an assistant there with Scotty Reynolds, was when you snapped the 99-game Southeastern District winning streak of Oscar Smith a few years back with Justin German and that crew going down the field to win it late. And for Nansemond River, their football program's been building as well, but it feels like that win over Oscar Smith. You played for Chris Scott, who's obviously the head coach at Oscar Smith when you played from at Ocean Lakes. Just that name, even though they have a couple losses, they may not feel like the same Oscar Smith. How much did that kind of, you think, add the extra eyeballs and antenna up for this game now, making it, oh my goodness, we got two Suffolk teams. We're used to having a Chesapeake team, whether it's Oscar Smith, Western Branch, who won the region championship a year ago, who you just beat, which we'll get to that game from a couple weeks back that was suspended and resumed. But it feels like now this has the makings of a game of the year. When you take down the Tigers, who have that aura and mystique about them, it does certainly put more eyeballs on your program, does it not?
Yeah, it really does. I want to say, I think, this is my third season. I don't really count. Well, yeah, I guess I can count the bubble. I mean, we played like a Suffolk bubble. But my first season as a head coach, we won the region. The only team we lost to in the district was Oscar Smith. We go head to head with them for the district championship, and we lost. And then last season, we were undefeated. Oscar Smith was undefeated, and they beat us again. And then I just think it's huge. Like this year, before the season, I mean, nobody would have said, Kings Fork and Nansemond River are undefeated playing this early, and it has huge implications on the district. I don't think anybody would have said that. So I think it's a testament, to our program and their program as well, because Coach Ricks, he's a great guy. He does it the right way. And it's great just to, be on the field coaching against a coach who has his experience, and, he does a great job with their culture over there.
For sure. And I want to get back to that matchup in a little bit here, but let's highlight some of your key performers thus far offensively and defensively. Let's start with the offense, because I know you were a little bit upset after the Churchland win. You got off to a great start in that game, didn't score in the second half, but you really picked it back up in that second game against Western Branch. You pitched a shutout in the game, so your defense played lights out. You also got good performances from your offense. You have a new quarterback that's starting for you, but I think the engine to your attack, tell me if I'm wrong, is Javon Ford, one of the best junior running backs in the entire state. He's talked about in the same conversation with players like Harry Dalton at Dinwiddie, who's a quarterback that runs the ball. Certainly the young man at Liberty Christian who's committed to Clemson, and Gideon Davidson, a number of great players in the state, Jeffrey Overton at Freedom of Woodbridge. To be in that company, it tells you that he's an elite player, does it not?
Yeah, he's very special. I mean, he can catch it out the backfield, line of back receiver, catch the ball, and of course he can run the football. But I think the most special thing about him is he's just a team guy, man. He's definitely the leader of our team. Our team will go as far as, his leadership takes us. He's very unselfish. He's really just concerned about his teammates and how they can get better. He challenges them every day in practice. He's a special kid. Typically when you have kids who get all this notoriety, have a lot of scholarships and things like that, sometimes they have an ego. But Javon Ford, he's a different type of kid. He really cares about team success.
It's funny you say that because in running into him at different off-season type events, he's always very humble, cordial, shake your hand, yes sir, no sir type of kid. And from the quarterback spot, you want that type of leader. You've had it the last few years with Cameron Butler, a 3-year, 4-year starter, but the young man right behind him, I remember you telling me in the summertime, we don't feel like it's going to be a drop-off whatsoever because he got his feet wet as a freshman, got into a playoff game in DeAndre Artis-Boone. The numbers have flashed across our little ticker on the screen here so far. Very, very good as he's completed 32 of 47 passes for 453 yards, 9 touchdowns. Just speak on his efficiency and the I guess you could say chemistry he's putting with his wide receivers because you have a pretty good 4, 5, 6 deep platoon of receivers to go with him.
Yeah, I think he has a chance to be one of the best in the state. He has the talent, has the arm strength, has the ability to run. And then he just has like the it factor. Like he's a true quarterback. He's the type of kid after practice, they're going to stay back, throw routes. He's the type of kid, he'll come in at 6 a.m, he's going to watch film. He's going to take it, he's not going to miss one workout from January up until camp. He's a true quarterback. Like he loves football. Like he's a true kid who just loves football, loves being a part of it. And it's just amazing to see because, I've had him since 8th grade. I've known him since 7th, but in 8th grade, he started JV for us. Last year's 9th grader, went in against a tough Deep Creek team and found a way to get us the win. I just think he's very special, man. He has all the attributes colleges look for. Once he gets more experience and things like that, I think he's going to have a chance to be one of the best in this area.
And your defense has long been one of the better groups in the entire 7-5-7, going back to a couple of years ago when you had those devastating pass rushers with Devius Higgs and Kyrie Moisten who went on to Virginia Tech. And you got a lot of returnees from a season ago, some big-time tacklers that are flashing across our screen here. And then a couple of new faces that have really, I think, impacted your secondary when you lost Kalitri Boyd, who was an all-state performer back there. The likes of Kayvon Blanding, who came in from Green Run, Darrell Wilson from Norcom, have really injected some extra athleticism and playmaking to your defensive backfield, have they not?
Yeah, so Kayvon, Choco Blandon, he's a special kid, man. He's gonna work hard. He has that dog mindset. He hasn't had a pass called on him all season. He has an interception. He probably has 8 pass breakups. He's just a special talent, man. But more importantly, he's a special kid. He's gonna work, and he's done a great job as a senior, just taking these young guys under his wing. With the defensive backs. He's just done a great job being a role model, staying after practice, getting extra work with them, hanging out with them, outside of practice. He's been huge for our defensive backs, just that they get to see like how it's really supposed to look. And he just does a great job with that.
Blanding last name certainly has a lot of cachet to it. Dad, Kevin, was a heck of a player back in the day running the football, and older brother Quinn was a great safety at Bayside, then the University of Virginia, where he was an All-American, all set a bunch of records for the Cavaliers. What would you, to describe for folks that haven't seen your defense and have watched you play a lot in the last few years, it's really just a fast, physical group, and every level feels like when you're clicking, They have no fear whatsoever about them, and they're putting fear in another team, and you're getting those sacks, the TFLs, the tackles for loss, takeaways. How's this defense mirror some of the recent groups you have in terms of maybe the head of schedule, a little bit behind this area, or right on par? How do you kind of break them down or describe them for those that haven't watched you play a whole lot?
I would say this is the most experienced group I've had as a head coach. Most of these guys, have started last year or started as a freshman. It starts with Brandon June, our Mike linebacker. During COVID, that first season, he had to start as a freshman against Smithfield. And now he's a junior. He knows where everybody's supposed to line up, so he's huge. Joshua Pittman, who's getting a lot of college interest. He'll probably get his first Division I offer here shortly. Started inside backer for us last year. He's 6'2", 6'3", 210 pounds, and we moved him to defensive end. And he's special. He's number 11. He's special. Last year we had Nansemond Gates. He started outside backer for us. We moved him to the defensive end, and he's been huge for us. And then you got the 2 big fellas inside, Cameron McDaniel and Justin Irby, 2 kids, they squat over for 500, bench a lot and can run. And then you got a 30 tackle, Brandon Weeks. I don't know where, I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't know where this kid came from. He came from North Carolina somewhere. I don't know, like the woods of North Carolina, and he just showed up like 3 days before camp. We made sure he was eligible, and he's a special kid. He reminds me of Sincere Quarterman, who I coached at Oscar Smith. He's the same type of kid like that. He had to get used to the scheme and everything, but he's a great kid, man. He's a different type of kid from North Carolina. And Zachary Walton, our free safety, he's been in the program since 8th grade. So we just have a lot of guys who been in the program, have experience. And of course, Malachi Nixon. I mean, he's special. I mean, if he catches an interception, he's probably going to score. He had over 4 last year, had a pick 6 against Churchland. Malachi Nixon is definitely, up there with the heart and soul of our defense.
A lot of
experience. A lot of guys have been in the program.
Yeah, a lot of guys with experience and have been in the program for sure. Didn't mean to cut you off there, but it's funny. You have a lot of playmakers on that defense, Coach, and you mentioned getting the kid from North Carolina that comes through. You love having those unsung heroes, breakout performers. Yeah. I know because you got the depth chart, you're assembling it, and then a guy just pops out of nowhere that's up further ahead of schedule. You don't expect. We asked this last week on the podcast. I'm going to get your take here in the last few minutes. Nicknames. I know all you coaches have great nicknames for players. I want to say one of your guys was, I don't know if it was Meatball or Cheeseburger last year. Who's got the best nickname on the team this year? I know you guys give them out, and a lot of times those linemen up front.
So to be honest, the best nickname is the kid I was just talking about from North Carolina. We call him Moonshine, and he just I call him Mooney. His real name is Brandon Weeks. Definitely doesn't look like a Brandon Weeks, but his nickname is Moonshine because he's from North Carolina, and the kids love it. He loves it. I call him Mooney. I think he has 5 sacks on the season. He just goes in and just makes plays. We were scrimmaging Verina, and he can't go but so many plays, because he just got here kind of. We're playing Verina. He's just out there just throwing up on the field. Like, he's just a different type of kid. Like, he just goes so hard, and then he'll just throw up and stuff like that. But he's a great kid, man.
Yeah, that's awesome. You love the nonstop motor. Hey, Bill Russell used to throw it before every big game when he played for the Boston Celtics, the late great 11-time champion, and it worked out for him. He won games, so you never know. Whatever works for somebody, it works. Although I'm not one that would like to do that, and I never played football. So, last couple ones for you, Coach. We appreciate you coming on. Now, I know your kids have heard all about Kendrick Overton. What a talent he is. He was our Chicho's Pizza 757 football player a couple weeks ago. He's a dual threat quarterback. He's certainly, if you were to have Southeastern District voting, which I know you all wish you could return to doing, he would be player of the year candidate on the offensive side of the ball for sure. You got Manny Azaga, who's a JMU commit who does it on both sides of the ball. So take yourself away from the coaching game plan and strategy, because none of you guys ever give us any real intel to it. So if you're a fan watching the game, what's the more intriguing matchup for you? Again, take yourself out of the coaching headset. Is it how this Kings Fork defense, which is so good at flying around, contains that dual threat ability of Overton? Or is it going to be in the trenches, maybe your offensive line against their defensive front, trying to establish the run, get off the – what would be the matchup that most intrigues you, just stepping away from the coaching angle, preparing for it, that you think will interest the fans watching this game?
Yeah, I would say, definitely their quarterback, man. I mean, he's special, man. Not a lot of kids throw that many yards in a game. Not many kids can say they've beaten Oscar Smith at quarterback. There's not a lot of them. So he's a special talent. I remember in the Suffolk bubble, he was a freshman quarterback at Lakeland. I was like, this kid's going to be special. So he's been a 4-year starter in high school. He's a great kid. Had an older brother that actually played at Indian River. He's just a great kid. His nickname is AK. Like, he's a great kid, man. He does everything the right way, leads their program. And then I love the kid Manny, who's committed to JMU. He is a special talent. Like, last year they never even put him at receiver, and this year, he's scoring 3 touchdowns against Deep Creek. I know last week, he was held to a little minimal, but that's because Oscar Smith definitely game planned for him. And then I like number 8. His older brother's name was Philly. I call him Little Philly. I don't know why, but that's what people call him. He's a special talent. And then their running back, Nick Greer. I mean, he's a track kid, and he's just, he last week against Smith, I mean, he's just breaking off 80, 70-yard runs, which, is kind of unheard of against the Oscar Smith defense. So they have a lot of talent. Roman Soriano, their center, he's a kid who has a couple of Division II offers. Really good size. He's been in the program all 4 years. His older brother went to Nansemond as well. I think he's at NSU or Elizabeth City State now. And then Shamael Hope, he is a really good player at D tackle and tackle. So I think there's a lot of really good battles. A lot of these kids grew up together. DeAndre and AK played for the same rec team. So, it's just a lot of these kids grew up together, so it's just very competitive.
Yeah, and lastly, Coach, get you on this. It feels like, they had a big game last week with Oscar Smith. You had one a couple weeks ago with Western Branch that got suspended because of weather. You play it. It gets called an official game after, I think, about 3 quarters or so, and you shut them out, which is a pretty big accomplishment since they won a region championship a year ago. The Southeastern District, week after week, you have a lot of those big games. You certainly have Indian River coming up soon as well. I think right after this game on your schedule. And what's that kind of do the district playing the teams, whether they're from Suffolk or not, whether it's a rivalry game with Nansemond or Lakeland or the teams from Chesapeake, as far as your journey of trying to make a splash in the postseason this year at the Class 5 level, because you moved up from Class 4 up to Class 5, where you're in a very tough region with Nansemond River, with Warwick, who's unbeaten, and with Maury, who's viewed as perhaps the best team in the state, regardless of classification, after their big 3 wins over the likes of Wise, Highland Springs, and Dinwiddie.
Yeah, I think for us, last year I feel like I've gotten better. So this is like year 3 as a head coach. The biggest thing is, man, we just got to get better every week. On paper, a lot of teams, should win games. Last year we probably should have won, the regional championship, but Warwick outplayed us that night, and they deserve that championship. But we just got to get better at just getting better every week. You want to be full stride when the postseason comes. You don't want to still be making little mistakes that, they carry on from week to week, and then they become habits. So I think for us, we really, truly just taking it week to week and spending more time on ourselves, spending more time evaluating what we did wrong. I think that's what, has made the difference this year. We're really just focusing on the little things before they become habits, and it hurts you later on in the season. And I feel like last year we didn't do the best job of that. We kind of coached it up, but then, it rears its ugly head, when you least expect it. So that's our main focus, just focusing on getting better every week.
Well, Coach, we appreciate the time here on the Hash with Hatfield on our podcast. Looking forward to the game Friday night at Kings Fork. Should be a big crowd for the Bulldogs playing host to the Warriors of Nansemond River. Let's hope that the rain stays away. We'll keep our fingers crossed with that, with Mother Nature and the weather that's in the forecast. And all the best this coming Friday night and beyond. And we'll see you coming up this week.
Appreciate you, Matt.
Thank you so much. That is the head football coach of the Bulldogs of Kings Fork, Anthony Joffrion, with us here on the Hash with Hatfield. We will step aside, have a break, and come back and put the finishing touches on this edition of the podcast right here on our streaming YouTube channel with the Virginia Beach Sportsplex. Stay tuned, everyone.
Okay, who here has reached peak fall?
Peak what?
Peak fall.
I am wearing plaid.
And I'm wearing a cardigan.
I guess I am eating snickerdoodle cookie dough.
And I am eating a pumpkin pie blizzard.
The new DQ Fall Blizzard menu has reached peak fall. Pumpkin pie, snickerdoodle cookie dough, and more. They are back.
I just love fall. Apparently we all do.
Oh, they did it. Peak fall achieved. DQ, happy tastes good.
And we welcome you back to this final segment of On the Hash with Hatfield. As always, like, share, and subscribe. We're streaming on our Virginia Beach Sportsplex YouTube channel, as well as on X, or Twitter, as some of you refer to it, on 757 Sports Talk. You can follow me at Hatfield Sports up there, as well as On the Hash. And also, we're hoping to be screaming. We're not going to be screaming at you. Don't worry. Not yet. Not yet. We hope to be streaming soon on Instagram as well for all you kiddies out there and folks that are very much involved with the IG lifestyle and family and community, if you will. But a lot happening across the 757 for high school football. As we know, games being shifted around. So if you're just joining the podcast now and you heard me reference with Anthony Joffrion on the game on Friday night, well, it's been moved up since we spoke to Thursday night tonight. A lot of games being moved up to Thursday night across the 757 and beyond. in the entire state of Virginia when it comes to high school football. Hey, want to hit on a couple of games before we sign off here on this edition. We also want to acknowledge our recent Chicho's Pizza Player of the Week. And it was a close call. There were really 3 or 4 candidates that kind of stood out. And if you want to nominate someone for the Chicho's Pizza 757 Football Player of the Week each and every week, get themselves a free pizza. That winner does. You can just do so very simply. Drop me a direct message, comment, post on our YouTube channel. There's all kinds of ways. There's no formal, way that you have to nominate. You can do it just about any way you'd like to. But let's acknowledge the young man that got this week's Chicho's Pizza Player of the Week, and that is none other than Caden Davis, as you see him now on the screen from Salem High School. 8 receptions, or is that 6 receptions? I can't read really well. He had 6 receptions, not 8. My 6s look like 8s. My 8 looks like 6s. Doesn't matter. He had 136 yards receiving, which is a lot. 3 touchdown catches, 69-yard pick 6. One of those touchdown grabs, and also the pick 6 came in the fourth quarter and was a back-and-forth seesaw affair. 46-42 over Tallwood. 3 games this year, he's got 24 grabs. That's 8 catches a game. 320 yards and 3 TDs on offense. So kudos to Caden Davis. Could have easily gone to his teammate quarterback Jason Scooter Williams. He's a junior. He'll probably get one before this year is done. If not this year, by next year, I would suspect. You could have also gone with Tori Newkirk of Maury, who had a great night. There was a lot of good candidates, but Caden Davis came through in the clutch in a big way for the Salem Sun Devils. Mark Hall's team now sitting at 2-1, got a big matchup with Cox on deck to try to get to 3-1, and that's a team that beat them a year ago. So a very important game there. That was the high-scoring, head-spinning affair that I should have gone to as opposed to that defensive struggle with some turnovers between Lansdowne and Bayside. And the Sun Devils have regrouped nicely from the season-opening loss to Bayside. They pulled out a squeaker with Ocean Lakes. They could have easily been 0-2 or possibly even 0-3, but here they are 2-1 with a chance to get to 3-1, trying to make some noise in that Beach District and also in Region 5A this year. So very good to see. And Caden Davis is this week's Chicho's Pizza 757 Football Player of the Week. All right, I mentioned it earlier in the podcast that Coach Young and I have disagreed on 4 games. I have a 4-game lead on him, even though last week he was able to beat me, I think unfairly. He had to have cheated. You can't beat me fairly. You have to cheat to beat me. He loves to live by the motto of lie if you can, steal if you must, but always cheat. He was 22-3 on the picks. I was 21-4. We put these picks up on VirginiaPreps.com. We've disagreed on 4 games this week. Let us know who you're riding with on this. I've got Kings Fork beating Nansemond River 20-13. Now, Warrior Nation, I know I picked against you last week against Oscar Smith. I was proven wrong as Al Kendrick, Overton, Manny Azago and company had the offense humming. But I think the Bulldogs, I think DeAndre Artis-Boone's being slept on in this game, and that Kings Fork defense could make it hard and try to make them one-dimensional. Javon Ford is a battering ram running the football, can also flex out the receiver at times. I think the Bulldogs will find a way in what will be a very good game here that I think is a 1 or 2 score possession game. I don't think it'll be a blowout. Bay Rivers District, we also disagreed on Poquoson and Tab. Sorry, John Byron, you were my guest last week on the Hash with Hatfield. I'm picking against you, though. I don't see a 4-0 start for his team. They dominated York last week in that rivalry series to take a 1-game lead in the all-time series, beating Doug Pereira's Falcons. Got a big game from Mr. Kuntz out there, who was also a Player of the Week candidate as well. From Tab High School. But I'm going Poquoson 26-17. Ed's got Tab 21-20. He obviously is rocking with Nansemond River 28-24 to beat the, as he called them, the Bull Puppies, I think, affectionately. That's awful. Someone should go make fun of him now when he's on the hardwood this year. Not his kids, but him. We don't want to make fun of the kids. Make fun of Ed. But in Poquoson Tab's case, I think the way to beat Poquoson is through the air. Their secondary attack the defensive backfield. I'm not sure Tab is built to do that in this game. War Hill and Lafayette, some of your better teams in the Bay Rivers can do that. War Hill did last week, of course. So I think Pocoson's going to get back on track here after a tough loss last week. Southampton Lakeland was a toss-up. I took Southampton 13-12. I think Ed's got Lakeland 14-12, so he's got to ride with the Suffolk schools there. He can't pick against 2 out of 3 Suffolk schools. That's asking for a lot of trouble. And then we disagree on another Bay Rivers game, Grafton and Bruton. I'm going 23-14 Grafton over Bruton, who's off to a wonderful start here. Barrington Morrison's doing a great job over there at Bruton, and they're looking like a surprise story here. You know, last year they were more run-oriented with Trey Corbin. This year they've been able to throw the football a little bit better with Ashton Bell. I like what Bruton's done here, but I think Grafton will be a little bit stingier up front defensively in terms of line of scrimmage play, tackle, well. And I think the Clippers, who have responded well, actually beat Pocosa not too long ago since that season opening loss to Norcom, will get the job done in that one. We also disagreed on Kickinton and Menchville, but that game has since been moved, wiped off the docket to November towards the end of the season. So there you have it on that game. And that's pretty much it as far as some of the bigger games. Norview at Churchland's kind of interesting to me. I think Churchland will respond from a loss. Deep Creek at Indian River. If Indian River gets this, they'll be 3-1 and back on track in a very nice way before they take on Kings Fort to close out September. Keep an eye on the Braves, who could crack the Class 5 top 10 with us at virginiapreps.com very, very soon, as I think they've gotten things figured out offensively after the slow start versus Verina. I think another game that you want to keep your eye peeled on in terms of the Beach is that Salem-Cox game, because I think that game is going to have some playoff ramifications in terms of seedings, as the first VHSL power ratings will be coming out in early October. It's just a couple weeks away, and then we'll have those out there for all the folks when it comes to following the high school football scene. So that's going to conclude this podcast episode. Again, we always want sponsors on board. Thank you for all the support that those that are teaming up with us and the folks at Hometown Sports Productions and the Plex. We always appreciate your support of high school sports across Hampton Roads and beyond. And we look forward to doing this again next week with all of you out here for On the Hash with Hatfield. So we'll do it again next time. And thank you for tuning in. Like, share, and subscribe. Comment. Weigh in on our question of the week. We'll hopefully have some polls up for you, too, on our 757 Sports Talk page very, very soon. So until next time, this is Matt Hatfield saying thank you for tuning in. Stay dry, everyone, because the wet weather and the wind and the muck and the yuck is going to be really rough to deal with, but there's a great college football Saturday in store, and we might have some Monday football for you too early next week, depending on how things go in the next couple of days, the next 24 to 48 hours. So thank you for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next time.